Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, our viewers today. Good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're very happy to have everyone here on board. Thank you so much to our panelists for today. Sharat from ACCA. All right, we have Sharat from ACCA. We have Miss Ng Hui Chen from APU. Okay, lecturer and program leader. All right, and we have Nelson and Farah, our very own students, okay, from Asia Pacific University. They are our final year students. We have a very, very exciting session ahead of us today where we're going to be talking about the accounting and finance professionals that we need in the 2020s and beyond. All right, so thank you so much for being here today, and we really think that this session is going to be one of a kind because we're going to be sharing perspectives from the professional body, ACCA. We have perspectives from academicians here, Miss Ng Hui Chen and Miss Mira, myself, okay? And also from students of Asia Pacific University. So I think it's a really good blend and of perspectives, and we're going to have a Q&A session and some poll questions throughout the session. So it's going to be really exciting. I hope all of you will stay on with us through the entire session, and do feel free to post questions during the Q&A session at the end. And of course, you know, we really hope that this session will benefit all of us, okay, the professional bodies, the students, the academicians, the corporate companies at large, to find out about how we are going to move forward in sustaining our accounting and finance professionals, profession and professionals, and what we need to do in order to prep ourselves, okay, to be, you know, within this exciting journey in this decade, 2020 and beyond. All right, so let me introduce our first session and first speaker for today, which is Sharat. Sharat, good morning, Sharat.
Good morning, Mira.
Hi, Sharat.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So let me just do a quick intro of Sharat. Okay, Sharat is the ACCA's regional consultant, okay, for policy. He covers ASEAN and ANZ, all right, and he's involved in thought leadership and professional insights on contemporary business issues. Okay, Sharat works with key stakeholders to share these insights, and he raises critical questions and issues to business leaders and policymakers, and he believes strongly, okay, in the fundamental role that finance and accounting professionals need to play, the role that they need to play in order to challenge and ensure purpose, relevance, and viability of both the business and public sectors. Okay, having worked through the Asian financial crisis and global financial crisis together, Sharat believes that both private and public sectors need to continually refresh their business models as they serve the contemporary needs of society. So Sharat, I don't think, you know, having gone through this too, I think COVID-19 will be definitely a platform, you know, for you to take up as a challenge during this time. And long-term sustainability, okay, Sharat believes can be achieved when the focus on customers' needs is built upon strong ethics, governance, and of course, accountability principles. So prior to joining ACCA, Sharat held a senior risk and strategy role, okay, to optimize revenue and profitability in intensely competitive markets. This included his time with Ernst & Young, and he also worked with a large listed palm oil producer and the Malaysian capital market regulator. All right, so Sharat, perhaps we start with your presentation. All right, and you could say a few words, Sharat, while we start up your presentation.
Sure. Well, firstly, thank you, Mira. You know, I almost feel embarrassed in that introduction because there seems to be a lot being said about me. But firstly, I want to thank you for bringing this event together. I think it's always a pleasure whenever I get an opportunity to speak to what I would describe as future accountants, not just Nelson and Farah, but I'm sure there's a lot of people also out there who are watching some of these things live and maybe even through a recorded link later. So, this is always something interesting that I enjoy doing. And much as my perspectives that I want to share today, I'm also here to engage with Nelson, Farah, and again, the rest of the APU community here in terms of any questions they have around where this profession is likely to go in this decade of the 2020s and perhaps even beyond that. So I'm just going to speak for about 15 minutes. And in this time, I just want to focus on two areas which I believe is going to be one of the key or the core issues that the profession is going to have to face. One is this whole digital wave and transformation. And then secondly, it's sustainability, right? These two, I think, will form the bedrock about what future accountants are going to be dealing with in their day-to-day activities and as they rise through their careers. And we have some very interesting research and analysis that we have done over the last year, which I will use to leverage on. Typically at ACCA, we do about 20 over pieces of research globally, and I'm just going to share from a couple of those research to help us get going in this conversation. But I'm going to start a little bit differently, Mira, and ask that we start with a little poll question that I want to ask your audience, the APU community here. So if you could perhaps bring up those poll questions now.
Sure, Sharif. No problem. And yeah, just
Yeah,
I'm going to put up the poll question, Sharif.
yes.
Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about your presentation while I set up while I share the poll question, Sharif.
Sure. And I think as I do that also, I want to highlight the first question is to get your feedback, again, as future accountants, as to whether you think through the vaccination programs that we're all having, not just in Malaysia, but, throughout the world, what do you think the world will be like after we have those vaccines? Do you think it'll be a place in which we can go back to working in the office, no social distancing, no need to wear a mask, or not, right? So that's the first question I wanted to ask, and we'll get maybe some thoughts from Nelson and Farah based on the results. And then the second question is, to gauge your sort of level of familiarity and experience with the different sort of analytics that the finance world is already grappling with, playing with in this era. Things like, descriptive and diagnostic analytics, as well as the more predictive and prescriptive analytics, the more forward-facing insight. So those are the two questions. And if you can just give a couple of seconds to that process, and then we talk about that.
Yes, Sharit, thank you. And Sharit, perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about how the COVID-19 situation has impacted us since March last year, and just a little bit. We would like to hear from you as a professional body, your perspectives of how you have been managing and handling things since March last year.
Sure. Look, I think there's been a lot that has happened since COVID sort of landed on our shores, and in fact, not just our shores, but throughout the world. And I could speak on this to many levels. I think one, as a professional body, we were concerned about what's happening out there in the business world, and we did a survey, we did a research, and I think what we found, this was in March and April last year, what we found, I think, has come to bear over the course of time. Issues around job security, issues around business confidence, customer orders being impacted, and to a large extent, at that stage, it wasn't about that customers were not demanding for things. They were, but it's just that the supply chain couldn't deliver those things, right? And if you're not in the office, if you're not being able to move, you can't do a lot of things. So as a result, I think, and from a student perspective, I think as a professional body, we were not alone in helping student communities to be able to take their exams and to continue their studies in a remote fashion. And I think that's important, not in the sense of, some people would find it very stressful in this environment, but I think it's about not allowing people's lives to be put on hold just because of COVID. We need to find a way to coexist in this space and let students who are willing and able to pursue their journey in studies and then hopefully get to a stage, where they are ready for the workplace.
Okay, Sharat, thank you so
Yeah.
much for that. And perhaps, Sharat, we will start off with the slides and we will continue with the poll questions shortly. Yeah, so
Okay.
are you able to start on this slide, Sharat, that I'm projecting here?
Sure. So when the poll
Okay,
results are ready, please let me know because I want to bring that
definitely,
up. Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. So as I mentioned, in March last year, we started with this research. And one of the things that I think we quickly found out was how badly finance functions were impacted in terms of the singular factors. You can see the area to the extreme left is around the unprecedented uncertainty, right? And uncertainty has always been there in the profession, in the business world. But it's the level of uncertainty in which, if you trace it back to March last year, if you recall, there was also some guidance then that you didn't need to wear mask. And then that
Yes.
changed, right? And then since then, we've gone on to different forms and evolution of this problem. And from a business angle, you can imagine how much you're having to deal with. Can you open up your supply chain? Can you open up your stores? By when? What is the supply chain effect? How will your customers feel? So there was so much that people, the business community, needed to grapple with, and that's the main thing that came through. Also, I put out in this slide, you can see that analytics was a key issue. And in a number of areas in which it is an issue. One is the fact that data is still, I think, being kept in silos by the various departments that hold this data. And it's the fact that this is something that is very close to my heart, which is the fact that we're not using enough of forward-based insights. And what I mean by that is things that you all might understand as predictive and prescriptive analytics, right? Because the past is the past, right? There's not much that you can change about it. And that's where the descriptive and the diagnostic pieces are in the past. But this is where we need to move forward to, right? So if you could just move to the next slide,
Sure.
please.
Okay. Yes, Sharon. As as we are getting some responses and some comments, I would perhaps like to also add, Sharath, that it's been a really, really difficult time as well, for the academicians and the students, okay, during this past 1 year in getting into the online teaching mode, right, and also, moving on to new things very quickly. So a skill that I think that I would like to just add on at this stage that we have developed is, attitude, perseverance, okay, towards learning new things. Yeah. And I really hope that this will be a good stepping stone towards new challenges that we'll be facing within teaching, and also the new norm, okay, within this area. Yeah. So Sharat, perhaps before we proceed with your the next slide, perhaps we would like to pose a question to our students, and we would like to really hear from them as well on their perspectives of this. Yeah, Sharon, go ahead.
Sure. Well, I was going to use the poll questions to do that, Mira. Is that still not available?
Yeah, it's coming through, Sharon. So perhaps we could
Okay.
just
Let's
go
wait
on
for
the
that,
general
Mira.
part. Yes.
Yeah,
Sure.
let's wait for that,
Sure.
and then we'll have a more, I think, opportunity to engage with Farah and Nelson. Yeah.
Sure. Sure.
If you could move back to the slides,
Sure.
please.
Definitely. And perhaps if Nelson, would you like to just do a brief introduction about yourself before we proceed with Sharon's presentation? We will start with Farah. Hi, Farah. Can you hear us?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me and see me?
Yes. Yes, Farah. Yes, Farah. Go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. So, hi everyone. I'm Farah Nabiha, but you can refer to me as Farah. I'm currently a final year student and also in my final semester of APU. I am doing accounting and finance, just the general specialism, because in APU we have many specialisms. So Nelson will definitely shed some light on that for you in terms of specialism. But yeah, personally, I am from the general specialism. And just to add on, Nelson and I are also ACCA student ambassadors. So we are both representing APU and ACCA at the same time to collaborate for this event. Yeah, that's all from me.
Okay, thank you so much. How about Nelson? Would you just like to briefly introduce yourself, Nelson?
Yes, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, yes, Nelson, we can.
Yeah, okay. Hi, everyone. So, my name is Nelson. And as Farah mentioned, we are actually from the same class, same intake. So, I'm also studying accounting and finance semester. But apart from Farah, I'm actually specialized in taxation. And also, based on what Farah said earlier, we are the student ambassadors of SCCA Malaysia and also students of APU. So both of us want to say a thank you for APU and SCCA Malaysia for providing us a platform for us to discuss, to engage with industry professionals from the student perspective regarding our topic today. So that's all from me. You can go on. Yeah. Hand back to you, Miss
Thank you
Mira.
so much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Nelson. So, Sharit, back over to you. Uh, and I hope you can see the next slide here, Sharit.
I can. Thank you. So I was just looking for my mute
Okay,
button. Thank you.
all right, go ahead, Sharit.
So I think this is something that might interest particularly the folks at APU because you all are very technology focused. And this was something that the research that we did together with Ernst& and Young globally. In July last year, this research came out. And overall, the level of adoption of digital technologies, as you can see, 27% isn't fantastic, right? I think we would expect
Yes.
that, we would be much higher than that. Some of y'all, I guess, Farah and Nelson, y'all are, just entered into this whole study. But let me tell you, we've been talking about this digital train here since more than 10 years ago. I think, Hu Cheng can attest to that. We've been talking about this for a long time. And one of the things that I think we need to move is the fact that the level of advancements that we have made in this digital space is still wanting. As you can see, we're only at 27%. And if you look at some of these areas, the areas that we seem to be lagging across the world here is in terms of things like learning and cognition, AI, immersive technologies, etc. Right? Community technologies is really something quite basic, and that's where we are doing okay. But if you look at even things like cloud, the level of adoption there is not high enough. And there is so much that we need to do and we can improve. Now, I want to say something which I hope will stay with you all, which is we've heard a lot about the rise of Asia, right? This is the century and this is the rise of Asia. And so let me offer something a bit controversial, right? And which is if we are not getting our act together on this whole digital space in Asia, we're not going to outperform the world, right? If we're not creating the forward-based insights about our customers, about our ecosystem, I think we're going to not be the rise of Asia. It's just going to be the rise together with the rest of the world, right? The only thing that we have going is a strong population, but that's not enough, right? As we will hear and talk about more. Okay. So if I can just
Sure.
move to the next slide. So let me put a little bit of
Wow, that's interesting.
good news out here, which is that in the same piece of research, we asked, okay, if this is where you're at now, 27% in Asia, what is the level of engagement with technologies that you see in the 2020s? Mind you, this is a survey of finance professionals, right? And that number jumps to almost 9 out of 10 expect the level of development and use of technologies to be so much higher. So that's something that I want you all to understand. And some of you may be questioning, but Sharath, you've just been hit by the pandemic. I don't think people will be spending, and you'll be hearing that from your future employers too. And that's real. So if you can move to the next slide. The scaling back of technology will take place. We know that, right? But if you look at it, it is not a long-term structural problem, right? For now, there are about 40 over percent who are saying that they will have to scale back. But over the next 5 years, that number drops significantly. And that's a positive, which means that the knowledge and the experience that you've been gaining, even while you're studying at APU, is going to be relevant. And if you harness that knowledge now, you will be in a much better position when you start to see all these deployments happening in your employers, right? So that's the main point that I want to make here. And if I can just move to the next slide, because this is, I think, something that will interest a lot of people. Now,
Strategic skills.
yeah, I think generally there's a lot of talk which says this is the kinds of skills that you need, but for the first time we broke down this research into what are the kinds of skills you need if you're an accountant with say less than 5 years experience. What are the kinds of skills you need if you're 10 to 15 years or more than 20 years? And this is the feedback I think that came through, and it's very, very telling. Because let's take one of them. This light gray line, which is about accountancy, technical, things like IFRS, things like audit. That's going to be important as you start your journey, but you will find that that quickly will become less and less important. When I say that, it doesn't mean that it's zero. As you can see, the chart at the bottom, it's 40%. So it's still relevant, right? But it's not going to be what changes the game. And what changes the game would be what I would highlight as your critical thinking, as your communication ability, as well as your technology skills, right? So those are going to be areas which I think are going to be fundamental, and that's what you will need to build up, right? So I think this is a question that I would probably want to maybe turn to Nelson and Farah. If you've got any questions or any concerns, in terms of these skills as to what you need to do, how do you improve, what would be the areas that you're most concerned about?
Yes, Farah and Nelson. Maybe we can start with Nelson on this one.
Yeah, sure. So, as a student, from accounting and finance background, the skills that I think for current I'm the most lack of is definitely the technology skills because we are different from the students that are studying IT or they say studying IT in specialized in business, let's say. So these skills is critical, as mentioned by Shara just now, that we are going through a digitalized world. Business are going digitalized. Then accountants itself need to change their roles. And this is especially for important for students because we need to know what is happening in the industry before we got into it. So for me, technology skill is certainly the critical one and it's must learn for students before they, starting to graduate and go into job. Yeah, that's my thinking on this. Yeah, I'll hand to Farah.
Thank you, Nelson. Yeah, I honestly agree with the same thing because as we all progress in this technological era, technology is definitely overtaking us all in terms of any little thing that we do. So, having being an APU student, I believe that I've made the right choice in terms of enrolling in a university because this university, its essence is technology. So even though I am an accounting student, I am able to be exposed to technological systems and all of the things which are necessary for a student to prepare themselves in the workforce. So, for example, when I did I think it was in my second year or my first year. I forgot. I'm sorry, but I learned the accounting system, the accounting software. So I learned SQL, using UBS and SAP. The very important one is SAP because I feel like a lot of companies are using that. So even during my internship, I was able to apply my SAP knowledge, although it's a very basic surface level knowledge for my SAP, but I feel like I was also able to gain more SAP knowledge when I did my internship. So it was
Right.
definitely very useful. Yeah.
Right.
Thank
And can I just ask a follow-up question, Farah? I mean, when
you.
you
Sure.
did all of this SAP stuff, did you play
Mhm.
around with analytics? Did you play around with more predictive, or was it more, sort of backward-looking insights?
In terms of what we learned or what I did in
Your
internship.
experience, yeah, in your experience in that
Oh,
internship.
okay. So it was more so because I was put in the audit deliverables team for my internship. So it was more so looking for information, not so much analytics because it's just internship level, right? So uh, I was more so exploring how the SAP is able to connect the supply chain of the company. Yeah. So I find it very interesting.
Okay. So, I would suggest, and I think you made a great point about the fact that you all are studying in APU, and APU's DNA is really about technology. Uh, I think you need to, both of you all and your whole of your batch and your profession, or, the future students in APU, you got to immerse yourself in this, right? I'll give you an analogy. A good friend of mine who's been with a bank for maybe 20 years, right? When they started the digital transformation, he had to pick up knowledge on it, right? He's been an ACCA member for more than 20 years by then, and you know how he learned? Through YouTube. He learned coding through YouTube. And it's not easy, as you all can attest, it's not easy learning this by yourself. But you have a community right now. You've got lecturers, you've got fellow students who are all playing in this space. My advice to all of you would be use this time, build this knowledge, because when you want to come out there, and I want to just come back to this chart, because what is it telling you? That even under 2 years, right, you're expected to think critically, you're expected to be able to communicate very well, you're expected to have strong business acumen judgment. To a large extent, I will tell you that I think that's a little too demanding of the business world. But let me tell you, Farah and Nelson, that's what the business world is right now. So I know that can sound a bit daunting, and that's the reason why when we have our ACCA papers in the strategic professional levels, they are a bit daunting. But it's to prepare you for what the expectation is out there. Because the last thing we want you all to do is to go out there and say, I feel unprepared, right? And there's a difference between being prepared and being ready. You're never ready. No matter what you do in life, whatever promotion that you get later on, being ready and being prepared are two different things, right? So let's move on, Mira.
Yeah,
I've
thanks.
got a
Thank you, Sharif.
poll question coming up, but again, I'm not sure if your polls are
Yes. Yeah,
okay now.
we're about to, yeah. So perhaps while I'm running the polls, Sharif, we can do a quick introduction of Miss Ng during this time so we can
Sure,
wrap her to it. So while I prepare for the poll, thank you, Sharif. Over to
sure.
Miss Ng.
Hi. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for Miss Mira for inviting me to be a part of this event today. Right, so I'm very honored to speak together with Mrs. Charlotte from ACCA, as well as Miss Mira and our two students here. So good morning, everyone. So Miss Mira, you want to carry on with my presentation or?
Yes, perhaps we will be projecting the poll in a bit, Sharif. So we will start with Miss Ng's presentation first. Yeah, Miss Ng, you can go ahead and share your
Yeah,
screen.
sure, Miss Mira. Okay, I guess everyone can hear me loud and clear, right? There's no problem, right? Okay, so I think
No
all
problem.
of you probably would have known that APU, we have in 2019 we have developed a course in financial technology, fintech, and I think we are all also aware that finance and accounting, sometimes the lines are blurring, right? So today, as one of the lecturers or academics in charge for the fintech programs, so I would like to actually use the insights, okay, or knowledge from fintech, and then we were going to actually discuss it, okay, from the perspective of the accounting industry as well. So I'm going to start my presentation. So the slides can be seen very clear, right? There's no problem in seeing my slide, right? Just to
Yeah.
check. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
just a moment.
Okay.
Just a moment, Miss Eng. Let me just check on
Yeah.
that.
I don't think the slides are up yet. Just hang on.
Yes. Just hang on. Yeah, Miss Eng. We're just adding you on. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Miss Eng, go ahead.
Okay, all right. So now I believe all can see my slide. So in fintech, we know that there's ABCD, these four key technology that's very important. And I think these four key technologies are very, very relevant for accounting and also finance industry as well. So what is ABCD technology? I think some of it Mr. Sharad has mentioned it in his presentation earlier. Okay, but we're going to actually discuss it in slightly greater depth. Okay, so the first one is I think in accounting or in fintech finance industry, artificial intelligence AI. It's basically, if you see that, most of the time people will be talking about AI and AI. So what exactly artificial intelligence is? Actually, artificial intelligence is not a new technology. I think more than 10 years ago, the financial industry has been adopting artificial intelligence in detecting some fraudulent transaction, money laundering transaction. So only to recently, this technology actually grow even further. Okay, so how can artificial intelligence helps the accounting industry? So basically, AI, they can help to process, the tremendous amount of data, and they take care of anything that's monotonous. So you don't need much of the thing. Even AI now can actually can do the predictions. They can do they can come up with suggestion even. Right. So the future accountant, they can spend more time in delivering actionable insight. Okay. So anything like from that's being analyzed from the AI systems, and then they pick up from there and they figure out a strategy that is that can help the company, all right, and to grow further. Okay, so in AI, we will know that we know things like maybe machine learning, deep learning. These are all the branch under AI. Okay, all right, and AI now is practically being applied in all, not only the accounting industry, in all industries. So they use this in handling the inventory system, etc. So I think AI is probably one of the things, okay, that it's really can be transforming the accounting industry, because it really can help us to do some things that if the human is going to do, it will take a lot of time. For instance, AI can be used to predict maybe any anomalies from the accounting or the what you call financial statements, or even can actually help to detecting any fraud, okay, in the financial statements. So this is some things that AI can help the future accountants, right? So the next one, B, okay, the B which stands for blockchain. So probably some of you may have or haven't actually heard about blockchain, but I guess if I tell you Bitcoin, I think everyone probably will say, yes, I heard about Bitcoin before. Okay, Bitcoin recently also gained the limelight, okay, the media limelight, all right. So we are seeing that Bitcoin, the value now is actually goes beyond 50,000 US dollar. Of course, that up and down, lah. Okay, ever since Tesla announced that they are going to accept Bitcoin, right? So the technology behind Bitcoin is basically blockchain, and blockchain basically came from a technology called distributed ledger. All right, so ledger, ledger is one of the common terms in accounting industry, right? Okay, so distributed ledger, how does it work? So basically, it the applications of blockchain, it is actually very diverse. Of course, the initial one is coming from the cryptocurrencies, but now we are seeing the applications of blockchain beyond that. Okay, we have seen blockchain in the logistic industry, supply chain industry. Okay, how they used to detect the halal product, etc. Okay, even in some of the what do you call it, government voting. Okay, so blockchain okay, can definitely help the future accounting industry, because the reason being is, especially after COVID-19, I guess the workplace get more distributed, right? Okay, all of us are working from home, all right, so the workplace get distributed. So that is when you need a technology like blockchain, okay, that can help you to store the data securely and accurately, and you do not need to be worried that the data will be manipulated by someone without your knowledge. Because the key things about blockchain is it's stored based on time stamping method, okay, and the ledger is spread across the parties involved. So if you change your copy, all right, it's not enough. Okay, if you want to manipulate something, you change your own copy, it's not what they call it, it's not enough. You also need to change the rest of the copy. So it makes people difficult, okay, someone difficult to manipulate the data. Okay, so that is the second technology that I'd like to share with you, blockchain, and how it could be impacting the accounting industry, right? So the third one, I think cloud and automated accounting. This one, I guess, I think all of us would be a little bit more familiar with. So we now know that a lot of this accounting software, automated accounting software, they are all stored in the cloud basis. So basically, you can perform the accounting task at any point of time from any location. Okay, right, so this makes not only the accountant's life easier, it also makes the company life easier as well, because you are not restricted by physical location. Okay, especially after COVID-19, we realize that the use of cloud is so important, when all of us are working from home. So the available of this cloud computing technology, or cloud accounting technology, it actually helps, I think, the life, okay, of the company easier, right? So that's the C part. Okay, all right, so the D part is data analytics. Okay, so data analytics, basically data analytics is also has got something to do with artificial intelligence. Basically the backbone of AI is basically data, all right, but of course it depends, like how much depth you want to go into. You want to go a little further, like very predictive one, that would be AI. So data analytics, it's actually talking from you that how you're going to a system is able to read or process either structured. Okay, most of the time, I think right now the accountants will be actually processing most of the time will be the structured data, right? Okay, so unstructured data, it's something that is very difficult for human to process, right? Unstructured data means, for instance, the post in Facebook. Do you have any structure there? Definitely no, right? Okay, so or any recordings, do you have any structure there? So very difficult for you to actually pick up the information, but the technologies can do that. Okay, and I think there's a growing concern or growing talk in the accounting industry, like we should not just focus on the financial information, and we should also focus on the non-financial informations, because these non-financial informations would help the company to generate the insights or create the value better. So this is where the data analytics power, it actually can help the accounting industry. So this is the A, B, C, D, the four key technologies that I think very relevant and also important for the future's accountant. So probably after I speak about this, right, maybe some of you, or even Nelsons or Farah, would have thought that, wow, this technology is so powerful, right? So where do we stand? Where do we future graduate as accountants stand? Now I think just now Sherrod also actually mentioned a little bit on that, but I also would like to emphasize on that as well. I always believe something is things that cannot be done, or things that's beyond technology. All right. So don't ever think that, oh, technologies can actually take away a lot of tasks. All right. So and then it makes the future's accountants graduate less relevant in the eyes of technology, but actually it is not. Okay, it is not. Okay, so to me, okay, I think, all right, there's certain things that technologies cannot do. Okay, technologies cannot do, or as a future's graduates, you should possess these capabilities. Okay, so what are the capabilities? So Mr. Charles also shared some, so I would also want to highlight, emphasize it again. So the important skills that I think for future accountants, okay, what is very important? I mean, on top of the technology skills, Of course, right now, if you talk about now, in maybe now to maybe in the next 5 years, probably technology skill is very, very important. Okay, if you know a little bit about what is AI, blockchain, and you're able to do coding, so that would helps you. But to me, okay, this technology skills, it's what do you call it? It is not the main thing. All of all, it's not the main thing. Okay, right? Because who knows, one day later you don't even need coding, okay, and you'll be able to develop a system. Okay, so to me, a futures accountant, beside of having the core concepts of accounting, all right, you also need to possess all this capability, especially the analytical capability. You must be able to analyze the insights that AI presents to you, right, or data analytics presents to you, and then be able to analyze, then be able to have a strategic mindset. You are able to create or suggest a strategy, okay, that is actually can help the company or creates the value for the company. Okay, and last but not the least is the leadership. Okay, leadership is very important. You must be able to lead, okay, in transforming something. Okay, right, so that it's basically what I would like to share with you today, all right, for the future accountants, okay, from the perspective of technologies or fintech. Okay, right, so okay, so speaking too much already, so I think also I would like to also um, maybe we ask the what do you call it, opinions from our two students here. Okay, so I think from shared presentations and my presentations, probably you would know that there's certain skills that you need. So just now you mentioned so much about the technology skills, some things that you're lacking, but I would like to also understand from students perspective, so what kind of soft skills that you think the youngsters nowadays, may not be yourself, but the youngsters nowadays are generally lacking in, and how the academic industry as well as probably the professional bodies can help to bridge the gaps that the youngsters has. So maybe Farah or Nelson, so any one of you would like to share with me your thoughts, okay, or share with the participants the thoughts.
Yes, go. Thank you so
Now,
much, Mason. Yes, go ahead, Farah.
okay,
Yeah.
Nelson, do you want to go ahead first?
Yeah, sure. So I think the most important soft skill is this current generation lack of. Just my opinion as a student, these few years, I think it's commitment. So just take my experience when I was in high school. I participated in this co-curriculum event activity called concert band. So I was a trumpet player during my high school time. So when we are playing music together, there is a one thing that our conductor mentioned about is commitment, because all of us need to stay together, right? So when we are committed to something, it generates responsibilities, because when you are committed to that, to the work, let's say when you're committed to the work, if you feel responsible, so you want to do that job properly and well prepared. So I think commitment is something that current generation lack of, because sometimes they just, they may not be able to commit too much because they feel like, there's a difference between work and life. I'm not saying that it's wrong. It's really a matter of choices, your personal choice, personal preference. Some prefer life over work, some prefer work over life. But I think still that you need to be committed to the work, so that because from there you generate the responsibility, you generate the self-discipline, and of course time management throughout the way. So I think this is something that we as a fresh graduates, when we're entering to workplace, is very important as well. Yeah. So I hand to Farah.
Thank you, Nelson. As for me, it might seem a bit, I guess, shocking, but I feel like the soft skill that I think not necessarily lacking, but maybe that students can better themselves is actually communication skills, because I believe that communication is definitely the essence of everything. Like in everything that you do, you need to communicate, and to send a message and information to one point to another, you have to communicate properly and well. And the key word there is properly and well, and effectively and efficiently. Because if it's not there, and if it's not effective or efficient, then your message that you want to spread across won't be sent out. And it might cause some misinterpretations or stuff like that. So, which are things that you don't want in of course happening. So like for example, I guess a lot of students can relate when say in a group project or group assignment. Um, I think communication is very much tested there, especially since we're all going on online and having like we are not able to meet up together to actually properly discuss about the assignment. So communication in terms of this new normal is definitely tested for us. So, having said that, we are needed to be more attentive and more open to accepting messages from people and all that. So, yeah, I believe that we students should better ourselves in terms of communication skills.
Okay, thank you, Farah. Then, do you think that anything that it can be done to help the students in improving the communication skills? Because we know that it's very important nowadays, especially after the COVID-19. All right, so soft skills is very important beyond technology. So, what do you think that anything that can be helped to improve the communication skills for the students from the students?
Personally, yeah, okay. Personally, I feel like first of all, they should not be afraid to speak out, and they have to be more, I guess, open to speaking, and they should not have that fear of, oh, if I say this, then it'll be wrong, or if I say this, then something bad will happen, a consequence that they don't want will face for them. So they have to get rid of that fear of speaking up and communicating with people, no matter the language or I guess a possible language barrier that can happen. So it's important for them to just maybe try speaking with their close ones, like their friends, relatives, or parents, so they can get that level of comfort coming higher when they speak with other people as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Farah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Miss Ng and Farah Nelson, for your answers. I'm just going to pull everyone's attention to a poll question that I posted a while back. And I'm just going to read out the poll question. Okay, will the vaccination for COVID-19 allow us to go back to normal? Okay, meeting physically, no need for masks, social distancing, working in offices. Yeah, just pulling your attention to this. And I just want to highlight here, Sharit, because I'm sure you will have some comments on this, that majority of the responses were yes. Okay, majority of the responses were yes to this. So Sharit, would you like to comment on this?
Do you have a percentage?
Yes, the percentage is still being through, but so far we've been getting yes as most of the answers, Sharit. So far we've only got 2 responses of no. So
Okay.
would you, yeah.
Okay.
Would you
Yeah.
like
So
to share?
So I don't want to be the person who is dampening the enthusiasm and energy and excitement with this vaccine. But I would urge you to talk to people and listen to conversations by medical experts, because I think we have a very unique situation here. And in fact, it's actually not very unique, right? Because let me go back and tell you that even in antibiotics, there is this whole subject about antibiotics have been overused, and the fact that bacteria and viruses have learned to mutate and overcome these things. That's been happening for decades. Now, with this, I think there are questions remain as to whether these vaccines will be able to address the various mutations and variants that are coming out, right? So, what I would urge everyone is to be able to adapt very quickly. I have got 2 kids in school, and they've been in and out of school. For the last 1 year, they've been in and out of school. And my mantra to them is get used to it. Because they love going to school, right? And I think a lot of people love going to work, right? They love communicating, they love talking to people, sharing meals. We're a very sociable, with people. We want to be with people. But I think we have to be able to learn to live with the switch on and switch off type situation. I'm not going to try and dampen the enthusiasm, but I think the reality is if this can happen, in a few years, you never know if another pandemic can happen. And this, again, is not a black swan. If you heard the term black swan, something that rarely happens once in 100 years, no. We've had the MERS, we've had the SARS, we've had all kinds of flu syndromes. This is just one that just, if you really look at it, its infection rate is high, its fatality rate is not that high, right? But it is enough to just scare everybody. So just understand that and learn that you, as accountants and finance and business professionals, let me label you all as business professionals. Forget the finance tag for a minute. As business professionals, you are going to have to be able to live and coexist with whatever situation you're faced with, right?
Thank you, Sharit. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned business professionals. I really like that terminology. Moving on from the classic back end number crunchers. Yeah, we did mention at when we were on the brochure of this session that we're talking about value creators, strategists, innovators. Yeah, these are the three terms that we use. So I would like to hear all your opinions on this, all the panelists for today, about what do you think about the viability of us transforming ourselves, okay, the future generation of accountants to be just going merely beyond number crunching. Okay, we have so much of this disruptive technologies mentioned by Ms. Ng and also Sharat earlier in their presentation. So moving forward, I want to hear from you guys about the potential and also the energy that we are willing to put in, okay, to transform ourselves, the existing accountants, and also the aspiring new generation of accountants out there. Perhaps I will start with Ms. Ng on this question.
Okay, thank you, Miss Mira. I think just now Nelson mentioned something about the commitment. So for me, if you want to transform yourself, the key things, okay, it's basically yourself, your determination. You want it to be or not. If you want it to be, I don't think I don't see anything that is impossible. Everything is possible if you want it to be. All right. So just like I think just now Sharon also mentioned about someone learned coding from YouTube. I would like to share a real example because I have all spoken to one of it is my friend who is a graduate, accountants graduate. Now it's a programmer. It's a programmer. All right. So totally not switching lah. So use his knowledge in accounting. So he is actually developing a database. So database lah. Okay, using the knowledge in accounting, and then he's now venture into the programming professions already. Another person is one of our industry partners. Okay, so he used to be an artist. Okay, but then now he is someone that who are able to develop a AI robo advisory systems for investment. Developing learn the coding by himself. Okay, and learn all the used what he knows about the quantitative trading technologies, and then develop the system coding itself. So at the end of the day, I think if you want to transform anything, okay, nothing is impossible. The key thing is your determination. If you want it to be, I don't think anything is impossible. So that is my little bit of sharing, Ms. Mira. So hand it over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Ng, for such an insightful response there. Yeah, there's a lot of information there. Perhaps I will continue
Mira,
on that.
Mira, can I just ask a question to both Nelson and Farah? And again,
Please
don't
go
worry
ahead.
about whether you get this right or wrong, guys. But what do you think is the percentage of time that a CFO occupies himself or herself on just financial data? Take a rough guess.
Do you want like a specific number?
Yeah, just a round number.
A round number.
Sharon, do you mind repeat the question again?
Yeah. So on a scale of 0 to 100%, right? What do you think? The amount of time that a CFO spends on just financial data.
Well, Farah, you want us to go first?
Okay, let me give you
Yeah,
some more
sure.
choices. Let me give you some choices.
Oh, okay.
10%, 20%, 50%, 80%.
Personally, I feel like it's 10 to 20 because I've heard that someone has told me, I think, that the only person that can say no to a CEO is a CFO, because CFOs are able to, with that financial data, they are able to make informed decisions for the company. So I feel like in a sense and in a way that they are more strategizing instead of like actually doing the financial data. Yeah, Nelson, you can
Absolutely.
go ahead. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, I don't even know,
Yeah.
need to go to Nelson now. I think you're
Okay.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
And you've raised why, because the bulk of their time is spent on strategy and operational, right?
Yeah.
And that tells you something. I mean, obviously, when you go in and start work in day one, and if you find that you're more than 10%, you might be thinking, what is this Sharad telling us about, right? There's a difference between being somebody who just enters and the CFO, right? Because the CFO has learned the business. So my advice to both you, Nelson, and whoever else is in your first year, do nothing except learn the business inside out, not just through the numbers, the financial numbers, but through every bit of information, customer data, competitive data, suppliers, what are the problems of suppliers. In the Malaysian and in the conservative context, we squeeze suppliers. You can't do that anymore. You can't do that anymore. So you've got to understand what are the issues affecting your suppliers. How do you work with them? So that would be my, one of the things that I'd like you all to take away, think about. There's too many things to think about. You end up confusing yourself. You don't know where to prioritize and focus over. So I'd say first year, just learn the business inside out. That no matter what part of the business you can engage with, production, marketing, engineering, construction, you know it, and they can't hoodwink you in the process. I'll just stop there.
Sure. Thank you, Sharon. And I've got some interesting responses from our those who are watching and joining us today from members of the virtual floor. Yeah, so Sharat, we have some one of them saying 80%, and to your question earlier, and we also had one more alumni, a student of ours who mentioned 20%. Yeah, to the question that you posed earlier. So I think we do have vast differences in terms of responses, and I gather that this will be something that could guide us towards working to towards finding solutions to these challenges that we're possibly going to be facing, right, in dealing with the new generation of accountants out there. Yes, so I'm still on my same question, Sharad. Would you like to add on to the three terms that I mentioned earlier on value creators
Well,
and
I think
strategies,
if you want to be
innovators?
value creators in the decade of 2020s, and I'm conscious of time, so we may not be able to go through the rest of my slides. But if you don't know sustainability well enough, you cannot perform as an accountant in the decade of 2020s, right? Let me put it to you a bit more concretely. If you don't know the UN SDGs, and if you don't know the science behind climate change, then that's what you need to focus on, right? And remember, I talked about understanding the business. You understand the business and you understand as well the climate impact, and don't forget the societal impact, right? Today, with COVID, we are seeing a lot of jobs being disrupted. And guess what? Where are the majority of these jobs? At the lower end. So the question that I think as accountants we must grapple with is, do we have a responsibility? And when I ask that question, I don't mean just from your do good heart part of you. I'm talking about that if we do not, as a business, address a fundamental problem that is broken in the economy and in society, it will come back. Look at the situation in Myanmar, look at the situation in Georgia, in part of Europe. When the society, and I'm not sure how many of the people here are non-Malaysians, but the term we use is when the rakyat is not having a fair share, when it's going through a disproportionate share of the problem, the business world will end up with problems. Hong Kong is another example.
Yeah.
People can't carry out their business because social issues are impacted. And I will share my deck later on, Mira. But again,
Yeah.
accountants
Sure.
are very clear. that we must address both social inequalities and environmental factors. That's what's going to drive value. Okay, if we think that we're going to just work based on the profit margin and try and work it up to create value, it doesn't quite work that way. You have to understand the value drivers of the business, and every industry is different. And from there, start to look at it more holistically, right? So, look,
Right.
there is no shortcut to this. It's about knowledge accumulation over time. And I come back to my point that there's a vast difference between being ready, feeling that you're ready, versus trusting the process of preparing yourself. So if you have a conversation with a future employer and they ask you, Farah, what do you know about UN SDGs? You can't speak to some things. They're not expecting you to be able to tell you all the 17, but you should be able to speak to some of them. You should be able to say, why does it matter, right? Not just to yourself, but also to the whole, business community. So start grappling with these things, because if you're struggling with technology, let me tell you, sustainability is equally a problem. And there's so much that is happening right now with a combination of finance, accounting, and technology. And in the slide decks that I will share with you all subsequently, I point to several of these sites where you can see examples of companies globally as well as in our region, which have done some tremendously exciting things. And I even quote an example of Curtin University in Sarawak, which have done this as well. So, some really interesting things that are happening right now. And I just ask you all to keep engaging with this subject.
Okay, Sharit. I'm just checking if everyone can just see my shared screen right now.
Yes,
Sharit.
Miss Mira, we can see it.
Okay, thank you so much. So basically, Sharit, we would like to continue with your area here.
Sure.
Moving
Okay.
on.
If we
Yes.
have time, do we have time?
Yes, please go ahead. We do have time.
Sure. Yeah. So I think this is one of those things that I wanted to ask Nelson and Farah. There is this article right before your eyes. The COVID pandemic has driven a record drop in global carbon emissions in 2020. And if you look at that, then the article says that it's a 7% drop. What do you think? Did you expect that drop to be more, or this is a fair number? Instinctively.
Perhaps we can start with Nelson on this one.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, everyone is starting to work at home. So we are, and because of government policy, let's say MCO in Malaysia, we are not allowed to travel. Beside those working in essential service or those needed to go to the business premises. So by not, let's say, not traveling, because we all know that greenhouse gases, some of that come from transportation, planes, cars, factories, some of them. So it's more like expected that the greenhouse gases emission has been reduced. But businesses need to work. I think myself as from a student that we need to work more because all in all we are working in a sustainable world. We are making impact to the environment around us. So when we are talking about environmental, social, corporate governance reporting, there are some like carbon pricing has been implemented to businesses of the carbon emissions they are doing. So I think it's important that business look at this issue carefully.
Okay.
And
So do you think 7% is reasonable, or do you think that's too low? Considering what you just said, that we couldn't travel, right?
mm,
We had to work from home. Some
yeah,
businesses could go out, but not a lot, right? And then you want to go
yeah,
to a restaurant, it's two to a table. Sometimes it's
yeah,
four to a table. Recently they
yeah.
relaxed it, but again, think of 2020. There was a lot of restrictions there. So are you saying 7% sounds right?
I'm saying 7% sounds reasonable because factories
Okay.
are still working. Manufacturing
Okay.
factories still working, yeah. And then the
Uh,
planes is still working for transportation
sure.
on cargo.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Farah?
So yeah. Go to Farah.
Yeah, personally, I feel like it's reasonable, but it can be better because I feel like with the existing companies that are still ongoing with their processes and maybe some are still using their conventional way, maybe they have to find certain or formulate their sustainable strategies again in terms of how they can reduce their global carbon emissions. Because even though, say, if it's just one company who does this, um, it can actually make a big difference. So if one company does this and then the other follow suit, then definitely this 7% will actually turn into maybe a two-digit number. Yeah, that's from me.
No, no, yeah, sure. But I think in 2020, that's all we got.
Mm,
Considering that economies sometimes came to a standstill, that's my point that I'm trying to, economies came to a standstill. We couldn't work from office, most of us. We ended up working at home. So maybe we are turning on the electricity more at homes, I don't know, or the
yeah,
air condition, right? But 7% is not a lot considering all that went through. If you think back from a Malaysian context, you will remember in the early days, the rivers started to come clean, right?
yeah,
The sky started to turn blue. All of these things started to happen, and yet we're dealing with a 7%, right? So I will offer a few points. I think one is the picture is very mixed across the world. Uh, Places like UK, to a large extent, hardly stopped, and that explains the situation that they're in now. US, as you know, they hardly stopped too, right? Nelson, you raised the point. Yes, instead of commercial, passenger travel, there was a lot more cargo travel. Definitely a lot more cargo travel. But honestly, passenger travel had come down to next to nothing, right? People were still traveling on a very exceptional basis, but nothing much, right? So this then begs the question: then where is this emission coming from? Right? I'm not going to give you all the answers. I want you all to start being curious about these things and exploring this. Where are these carbon emissions coming from? Okay. Mira, if you can move to the next
Yes,
slide.
sure.
Okay. And this is a piece of research that we did again last year. Again, this is post COVID-19. And, clearly you can see here that finance leaders are saying that we need to do a lot more in terms of the environment. We need to do a lot more in terms of addressing social inequalities. And this is quite a difficult area. Let's be honest, it's a very difficult area. Even if you talk about environmental reporting, like in financial reporting, what's your go-to standard? Farah Nelson, what's your go-to standard, international standard? If you don't know this, I think Mira will faint.
Go ahead, Farah.
IFRS.
Absolutely, yeah. You don't have to look so worried. That's the answer. In non-financial reporting, you at least have about five now, at least, and it probably is growing. You got SASB, you got GRI, you got the IRRC, you got the non-financial reporting directive in EU, and then there's others also coming in. So right now there are talks to try and converge some of these things, but that's not going to be an easy issue. But it's still something that we are playing a role as a professional body. We have our CEO in one of these coalitions to come together and bring this together. Because can you imagine if you're a business today, you got financial reporting, you basically have to just use one. For your non-financial reporting, particularly on environment impact, if you're dealing with customers in Europe, they will tell you, I don't care what else you're using in Malaysia. If you want my business, you have to use this European standard. If your customer is in US, he's going to say or she's going to say the same thing. So that creates a tremendous amount of burden, particularly in Asia, because we are the manufacturing house to the world, right? So we are the ones who will have to, deal with the compliance burden, right? So, but I don't want it to look as though this is a compliance burden. This is about understanding how our businesses are going to be impacted by the environment. Can we move to the next slide?
Sure.
Okay, so this is a piece of research and report that I always watch every year, and I would urge you all to do the same. It's by Edelman. It's by a PR firm, not even an accounting firm. But it takes the pulse of what is happening across a breadth of issues that impact you all personally and professionally, right? I've just picked out one area here, which is CEOs must lead on societal issues, right? And you can see here 80% expect CEOs to publicly speak up on things like the pandemic, on jobs, on societal issues, community issues. And look at the next one. More than two-thirds are saying CEOs should step in when the government does not fix societal problems. This has tremendous implications, right? And it's for you all to understand this because I think somebody mentioned this. I don't know whether it was Miss Eng or Farah that the CFO in many organizations is just next to the CEO. And the CFO's agenda must be in aligned with the CEO's agenda, right? As you all said, he cannot be busy or she cannot be busy worrying about financial data alone. Only 10% of her time is spent on that. The rest is on strategy and business, as you said, Farah, and if the CEO is expected to deal with problems when the government does not deal with issues, for example, if SOPs are not clear, the CEO has to step in and give clarity to not just his employees or her employees, but to the customers, to the suppliers. This is how we're dealing with the situation. And you always want to stay 2 levels above what you expect to be the minimum requirement, right, of the government. But it's about clarity more than anything else. And when I speak to you all about this, let me not say that this is a Malaysian problem. This is a problem throughout. And there is a clear call. Now, what happens? If the public feels that the CEO is not doing it, you lose trust in businesses. When you lose trust in businesses, you lose sales. It's as simple as that, right? So I urge you all to think through about this. In Mira, if you can move to the next slide.
Sure.
Now, who's this gentleman, right? Very smart looking chap here. He's Dutch. He used to be an accountant. He was a CFO, then he was a CEO of a logistics company called TNT. And then since 2012, I think he made this very bold pronouncement that accountants will save the world. And if you are studying accountancy right now, you should feel good because there's a global call that you as a profession have a fundamental role to play in saving the world, right? And he is now the CEO of a body as part of the UN SDG. It's called the World Business Council. This is a CEO-led type of movement. About 200 over people are involved in this. And they are really looking at what are the changes that we need to make so that we are dealing with sustainable issues. We're dealing with climate issues. We're dealing with wastages. We're dealing with plastics. We're dealing with water issues, right? Now, again, one of the problems that you will face as an accountant is how do you make all these very dramatic sounding problems to be real life world business problems for the people that you're engaging with, right? I'll give you a simple example. If you talk about rising sea levels, right? If we don't deal with rising sea levels, some parts of our roads will be impacted. Now, when that happens, your supply chain gets disrupted, right? I used to be in a palm oil company. We had estates by the coast. And when we are having water come in from the seas, these are saline water. This is not your air tawar, as we call in Malaysia, right? These are things that are going to destroy your plantation. You're going to have yield problems. So, let's say you're thinking about something else. You don't have water irrigating your paddy fields, or even if we were in a different part of the world producing cotton, and be thinking, okay, I have enough shirts, Sharath, I don't need any more bajus. I'm happy. Yes, but then you may not be able to go to hotels because hotels have to use linen, right? And they need this. So our challenge is to think through these world problems and make it real to our audience, right? Because if we keep sounding like we are Mahatma Gandhi or Mother Teresa or something like that, you're going to lose your audience. You're going to have to make it real and practical to the people around you and to change communities, right? But it is a real problem that we have to deal with, right? The climate science is so real that it is science, it is not myth. The reason you don't see it now is because this is a long-term phenomenon. And if you don't do something now, it will change. Once it changes, you cannot reverse it. You cannot reverse it in a matter of time. You might think of the example of our rivers becoming clean in a matter of weeks, the sky becoming blue, but that's with almost zero activity. You can't afford zero activity in our businesses, in our society, can we? Right? You'll be without a job. A lot of people will be without jobs, so we can't afford that, right? Mira, if you can just move on quickly.
Sure. Sure.
Right. So this is accounting for sustainability is the tool that I was talking about. It's a website. It was started by I think a foundation in UK called the Prince of Wales Foundation, and it was actually a call to the accounting profession is to do something and to be able to demonstrate what it is doing for sustainability. But what I really like about this A4S website, and you can go and check it, is that it looks at examples, it highlights examples of how sustainability can be addressed with technology. Let me just give you the example in Olam. Olam has got a loan facility, 500 million, and it's going to pay back that loan, the interest rate, which is dependent on its success in dealing with certain sustainability matters. It's a various number of indicators. It's not just climate. One of them is this. In Heathrow, the accountants there built a sustainability investment management tool, which looks at the amount of carbon reduction from whatever that they're doing, they're investing in, which is important. I think you all mentioned about the aviation industry earlier and how that contributes significantly to carbon emission. Yep, this is something that they have to do. That last example there, which you can't see, is Sainsbury. It's a supermarket or retail chain in UK. They're pretty big, and they're looking at fishing. In this case, I think it is tuna, if I'm not mistaken, about how well and sustainable are these fishes, in terms of its capture. Because there's a worldwide problem in relation to fish in two areas. One, there's overfishing. Two, and this is the recent research that came out in Australia. I'm not sure if I should mention it because you all might stop eating fish. But if you eat fish, you consume the size of a credit card in terms of plastic every week. Every week. These are microplastics which are found in the ocean. These are plastics which start off being bottles and then they're broken down, but they cannot be, completely eradicated. They end up being very microplastics, and they stay in your body. And then you wonder why you're so sick. So I think there are a lot of things that we are ingesting, and it's out there. So companies are trying to do something about it, and we need to do something about it too. Next slide, please. Right, and this is my last example, which I briefly mentioned, which I thought was very inspiring, and it's my call to y'all in APU to see what y'all want to do. Here's an example of a student-led project in Miri, Sarawak. It's led not by finance, it's led by, I think, the engineering side, but they're using financial and they're using digital adoption. And this project is even being led by someone who is not Malaysian. And so, to me, this is a tremendous example about how, I guess, we are all global citizens, no matter where we are. A. B, there's a role for academia here to play with public service or with the government and involve the business community too, right? So look, if you think boldly, there are many things in which you can do. It's whether you want to do it, whether you're prepared to put in the extra amount of time and hours and effort. Look, in my line of work, there's so much that I do outside of my line of work because to me, it's about pushing the frontiers of what we're doing, whether that's technology, whether that's sustainability. So I don't have an idea of a 9 to 5 job. To me, it's are we progressing in the kinds of things that we want to see happening in society? I think it requires a different mindset because if you're worried about so many things, what they call now in terms of work-life balance. I won't give you my example, right? Because you'll think I'm biased. But there's this well-known, famous prime minister. Her name is Jacinda Ardern, right? And I think you all know that she gave birth while being a prime minister. And she herself said that there's no notion of a work-life balance for her. She does the best that she can. And I think that resonates very strongly with me because, you know, you got to believe in what you're doing. You got to keep pushing and making it happen. And, you will find a way to find the notion of balance very vaguely, but you will know when to rest, you will know when to push further, right? You will know when to use your time for more creative purposes, and you will know when to use Nelson's term, be dogged, be determined, stay true to the commitment. And in our language in finance, it's to do the routine and boring stuff, right? Because in your generation, there's a general tendency towards loving things that are exciting. But there is an element, even though with AI, even though with analytics, which is tremendously interesting, there's an element of doing things which will be less interesting. And you have to stay true to that as well. You will pass, and it will lead you to better things, but you learn in the process. So, I'm just going to stop with this example in Curtin, Mira, and then we can open up.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I've asked many questions to Farah and Nelson. Maybe they now have questions. Maybe your audience has questions.
Yes.
I'm happy to take that together with
Sure.
Miss Ng.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Sharif. And yes, we are back. I would like to highlight we've got really good questions coming through from the our viewers, and comments and questions. Yes. So I would like to open up the floor to questions. Please feel free to throw in your questions, guys. And my first question I'm going to pose to Miss Ng here. Okay, so I'm just going to read out the question to you, Miss Ng. So this question is for Miss. Yeah, thanks, Miss Ng. This question is for Miss Hu Chen. Is that possible for the auditors and accountants to stay for work from home remote setting even after the pandemic? For the people that are already adapting during COVID-19, this is long since the cost of it is efficient, but the efficiency of the work outcome is questionable. So we would like to hear from you, Ms. Ng, on your comments on this question.
Okay, I think this question we should pose to Sarah as well as from employer perspective. But I'll try to
Definitely.
offer what I know or I think. Okay, so definitely after the pandemic, I think the work structures. Okay, definitely there will be a change because I think even before the pandemic, right? I don't think work from home this idea, it will be received well by the employer before the pandemic era. Okay, but after the pandemic, we have got no choice. We have to go through this work from home settings, and I think some of the employees have started to accept the idea of work from home. But I do believe that even though we can work everything remotely, okay, with the technology, I think everything is possible. Okay, but I still think, okay, the workplace will be more efficient or even more effective, okay, with a face-to-face contact. I'll still think so. Okay, I'll still think so because at the end of the day, I think after the post-COVID-19 area, we might suffer from something called maybe the technology fatigue or digital fatigue because the whole day like we are sitting in front of the screen and we're speaking to someone in front of the screen. But I think as a human, we still need that kind of human interactions and human touch. Okay, and I think sometimes the work environment, okay, physically we have all the colleagues together, right? It'll be more effective than you work remotely. Okay, because not everyone would be very what do you call it, will be very disciplined. Okay, that they can really work 100% or well without a close monitoring. Okay, and so that's why I still think even after the post COVID, I think the employer would somehow more agree to the idea of work from home if you have something on, okay, or when they give you some flexibility. But I think not all the time. Okay, so this is what I think because at the end of the day, I still think the efficiency, okay, it's still best when you have the human contact to get the face-to-face contact, right? So that's a little bit from my opinion. So probably we can also hear from the rest as well.
Sure. Sharad, would you like to add on to Nisang's comments?
Sure. And I'm probably going to say a few things which might sound a bit controversial. But firstly, I think during this whole work from home and COVID pandemic, productivity has improved and increased tremendously in many areas, many sectors. We might think that, oh, working from home, you don't know what people are doing. I don't think so. I think, trust can still be built in an online world. Even in a pre-COVID world, right? My job was regional. Do I get to see the people in Singapore and in Myanmar and Vietnam? Not really. You get there maybe once a year, twice a year. But point I want to make, productivity is increased. I have seen people being hired during this online world, working world. I have had an example of one of our members in, I believe he's in Pakistan. He's running a small S&P, actually in a digital advisory firm. His client is in the UAE. Work started and was delivered during COVID. Tremendously successful, he said. And I said, how did you do that, right? I mean, how do you even build these business relationships in online work? But he says, look, it's the same. It's just that people connect you. Someone has a problem, they're looking for help, and they get introduced, they start talking terms, and a lot of this work was done online. Now, is this true for all? No. I've had friends who are in SMPs who told me that they can't do, and serve their clients online. I said, why not? Because my clients are not on the cloud. I said, well, I mean, when is that going to happen, right? Is there something that y'all can do to change that now? And, so a lot of people are struggling with the mindset. I think it's a mindset problem. Again, they're doing it with the hope, and this is several months ago, they're doing it with the hope that, once the vaccine comes, we'll go back to normal. I'm just saying, as an accountant who's been in the business world for many years, gone through several economic crises, this one is not an economic crisis. This is a public health crisis, which has led to an economic problem. There wasn't something majorly wrong with our economy before that. That you can't wait. You can't wait for these kind of solutions. So I think it's very positive. I echo what Hui Chen said. Before, employers were saying, I don't want people to work from home. I don't know how I'm going to trust them. Um, Proof was the opposite. Proof was the opposite. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Sharad. Thank you for that. And yes, I strongly think that, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic also, there was a lot of balance in terms of the accounting and finance industry between office environment, accountants, having my experience being in audit and tax for a while at the initial early part of my career, we don't even have like a fixed desk. We used to hot desk. Sharad, I think you remember how it was back in Big Four. Yeah, we really are pretty mobile. We work a lot at clients, and communication is key, definitely. But I believe that discipline and whatever that you need in terms of achieving that goal or objective that has been set, okay, for you to achieve is key, rather than looking at whether it is physical. There are situations that you will need physical presence, and there are situations that you can work in a work from home, or in a mobile environment. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I would like to hear from Farah and Nelson as well about what do you think about this area. Maybe we start with Farah on this.
Yeah, sure. First of all, I think I am in no position to actually say my maybe knowledge or something about this area, but I definitely agree with what Sharif and Miss Ng has spoken about, because I still agree that even though it is quite similar that working online, you still need to interact with people and all of that. But I'm also a true believer of having a human connection will maybe make things more enjoyable as a whole, and maybe make things more effective for maybe that person, because maybe those who are not so tech savvy, this is going to be something very challenging for them to face, because it's something very new, although they've been in the maybe industry for long. So I feel like the human connection is still much needed over what technology can do. Yeah, that's all for me. Nothing?
Yep. Just a little bit add on. Because, I'm also agree that with what our previous speakers said, because based on my experience, I was doing my internship. That was a time that when MCO first started last year March. So basically, I done my internship all the way using online, working from home. So I would say it's effective because a lot of time we have this cloud system. Basically, you just access the files from there, and then you just do your works. But I think it still depends on the nature of businesses. So if sometimes the business can be delivered online, then maybe working at home is much more effective. But what if the business that require face-to-face discussion, then there will be another whole story. So I think it still depends on business nature, but I do agree with Farah that human connection is still pretty needed because that's the fundamental of human beings. Like, yeah, thank you. Back to you, Miss Mira.
Thank you so much, Nelson. And I think we have, really had a productive 1.5 hours, guys. Various discussions, presentations. We've highlighted, together a lot of issues, and I believe, this session will really, really benefit. Okay, the students, the academicians, the professional bodies, all right, and the profession at large. Yeah. So I would like to take this opportunity to just get a thanking note from all our speakers today. I will start with Miss Ng.
Okay, thank you so much. I think today's session is it's really a good session because we get to hear from different perspective. Okay, we get to hear from the industry perspective, and we get to hear from the academic sides of it. Well, with Miss Mira and myself, and also from the students' perspective. So it is I would say it's like we're well-rounded, okay, from different perspective, and I think maybe one last thing that I would like to stress, okay, because I think most of the listeners are basically students. So I think as a student, you need to remain dynamic and also open to any changes, because I think the world right now it's characterized by too much of uncertainties. If you not dynamic enough, or you just want to stay inside your comfort zone, so that would be very, very dangerous. Okay, so I would like to strongly encourage all of the students to explore, right, not only the technology. Of course, technology is very, very important, but also explore those kind of soft skills that we have actually mentioned earlier, because I think at the end of the day, what is going to differentiate yourself and the others, it's basically the soft sides of the things. Okay, I mean, on top of the hard skill, okay, the soft side of things is also very important. So probably this is just one last note that I'd like to add on, right? Also, I really appreciate very much for the opportunity given to me to share with all of you today. Thank you, Miss Mira. Thank you, Sharon, and Nelson, and also Farah. It's good to actually have you, okay, and have me in this session as well. So thank you so much.
Sure. I'll move on to Sharon. Thank you, Misa. Move on to Sharon.
Maybe you can hear from Farah and Nelson
Sure.
first. So.
Why not? Go ahead. Farah?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you so much, Miss Mira, APU, ACCA, for having me and Nelson on board for this event, because it's not every day that you see students being able to collaborate with a very industrial expert and also lecturers from our own university. So it's also my dream to have this particular event, as we are able to see each other's perspective from different levels of view. So I am definitely very much appreciative towards everyone involved in this event, and I also appreciate that given this platform, the students are able to voice out, well, on behalf of students, I guess, that we are able to voice out our opinions, and levels, many different levels can understand also from a student's point of view, and understand what we're going through and empathize us as well. Because even though everyone's going through the same path of online learning and the pandemic, but it's also something unprecedented for students as well. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Yeah, very valuable comments there. Thank you so much, Farah. Moving on to Nelson.
Yep. Once again, so thank you, APU and SCCA for providing this platform. And also, I think most of our listeners today are students, and most importantly, I'm also a student as well. I'm not. I'm just the same as you. Me and Farah, we are graduating soon. We are panicked. We are struggling that we couldn't find job, or even we find job, how do we count the room? So I hope that this webinar, this live today, actually provided you some ideas of the roles of accountants in going towards sustainable, especially when how Shara said before that CFOs are no longer looking at financial data. We need to understand everything on the business. So I hope today this provides you a channel or at least some ideas for you to explore more. And also thank you to all the students, alumni, industry professionals, everyone that listens to us. Thank you very much. Hand back to you, Ms. Mira.
Thank you, Nelson. Thank you. Oh, so over to you, Sharid, to do a wrap up.
Oh, wrap up. Okay, well, I think firstly, a few things that I wanted to say. I mean, firstly, I wanted to thank you and congratulate you, Mira, for putting this together. You've got some wonderful people here in Farah and Nelson. Hui Chen, your knowledge in the technology space is really, I think, something that the students will be leaning on. I just want to come back to this subject, the 2020s. And I'm just hoping that it will be a decade of opportunity for people like Nelson and Farah, and for the wider profession. But it's an opportunity that involves a lot of work. And I want our young future accountants here, I hope that they will take up this challenge, because it's tremendously exciting. I mean, I don't think you want to be like how I started my journey, because my best friend was the photocopier machine. Some of y'all, I don't think even know what a photocopier machine is, right? So that's where, we were just photocopying audit evidence, for hours and hours. You have now a working world which is far more interactive. The flip side of the challenge of being asked to know business and to all of that is that you're already valued as someone who has got ideas, creativity, knowledge, business acumen. Take it up. Take up that challenge. Take up that opportunity. If you think though that whatever you're learning in university is enough, then think again. You've got to be thinking about what is happening in the Age Malaysia, and I'm not here to promote them. I don't own any shares in the Age. It could be other websites out there which are for free. And it might surprise you that my two favorite resources are YouTube and TED Talks, because I think they really challenge what's out there. So I think it's a decade of tremendous opportunity. If I could start my career in accountancy, I would have preferred to start it now. I know it sounds very daunting for some of y'all because of the COVID situation and all that, but look, I think we will find a way to coexist. We will find a way, to deal with this issue. And to me, if not in this decade, definitely in the next decade, I think we will start to see the progress that we're yearning for, in terms of, climate control, in terms of social inequality, etc. But that can only happen if this decade we put in the hard work and the hard yards. So I hope we all work together in this. And I just want to end by saying we should do more of this. I really don't know why we don't do enough of that, to Farah's point. Why do you all feel alone? and disconnected, and that people like in the business world will not come and talk to you. I don't think so. If you want something like this to happen, you can reach out to Mira. I'll be happy to support you all and to bring along some others, that you can engage with. So let's do more of this. I'll stop.
Certainly. Yeah, thank you so much, Sharad. Thank you, and thank you to ACCA for this collaboration that we worked with Sharad today on the session, and Sharad for all the effort that you have put in prepping for the session. Miss Ng, of course, our pride and joy for FinTech. Okay, she's the program leader for FinTech. If you have any questions, anyone, she'll be happy to take them. Okay, in this area, and the school itself, is going towards changes. We're adopting changes. We've brought in lots of new things into our curriculum. So definitely, I believe that moving forward, we will really bring the relevance of the industry into the curriculum, and I can definitely say it's effort that has been put in from all angles, from understanding the needs and wants of the organizations, the companies out there, and skill set and soft skills that Farah and Nelson mentioned earlier. So, and of course, thank you to our two wonderful students, Farah and Nelson, who are also ACC ambassadors. So I'm sure they would also be happy to, be contacted by students or anyone for that matter to find out more about how we can all work together, for the betterment of the profession. Thank you so much, everyone. It's the end of our session today, and look forward to seeing you guys again on a different topic. Thank you. Thank you very much. Signing off, Mira.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.